Hey there, this is Dan. You're watching this LTC, and I was going to have no video this week because I am working on my quarterly meta videos, putting out a tier list, etc., going through all of the faction win rates. But something that I noticed while I was doing the research for the video was I noticed some patterns in some of the lists that are maybe near the bottom of standings in tournaments, that are maybe not lists but like factions that are near the bottom of win rates. And that is that a lot of them seem to be running what I would say are maybe cannon fodder, or like things whose job is to die and cost you a lot of points. And what I mean by that, I'm not telling you not to run things, but I just want to put out a PSA. If you love your cool model, that's awesome. But I think that people are underestimating what the top lists of the game in the game are capable of from a pure damage standpoint. And some of those are hard to show here, like there's some shooting lists that where the damage is very complicated. But there's also some very simple lists that are going around winning tournaments. And I wanted to just show the kind of damage that is possible now, especially now that Divine Blessings have essentially become the strongest thing in the game. So the main thing here is that Divine Blessings scale with attack buffs. And I know I have Onslaught listed here a lot as the attack buff I'm using, but even then, when Divine Blessings is giving you +1 attack, and then you Onslaught, your sort of the two dice that you have now cover each other, and your percentage chance of doing a bunch of damage is higher, right? And so it's become to a situation where putting out a ridiculous amount of damage is really trivial for any Grand Alliance other than Order, really. Now, Order has other tricks that are good, but any Grand Alliance other than Order can just put a ridiculous amount of damage out there. And I just want people to know this so that you don't necessarily walk into it. So, looking around here, for example, a Wielder of the Blade 75% of the time against T4 is going to do more than 12 damage. 40% of the time, it's going to do more than 15 or 15 or more. And that's only a 200 point model that, depending on what the dice are looking like, it can go 7 inches to hit something, right? A Hellwraith that should say 11 there, not 7. A Hellwraith is planning to kill you from 11 inches away and can really easily take out these 12 wound, 15 wound fighters. But when it goes up and into some of what destruction can do, for example, a Clawback at 6 inches away, it moves 5, it has 1 inch range. At 6 inches away, 75% of the time against T4, it'll deal 21 wounds, and 40% of the time it deals 27, which is incredible. You can peruse this table at your leisure, but the thing that I want to communicate for folks is that this should be informing the types of things you run. One, blessings are really good on big fighters. We knew that already, but I do think that folks forget it from time to time. But the other thing it means is if you have a fighter that doesn't do overwhelming damage, you should probably avoid having it have just its only job is just to be killed. Because I see a lot of people running that kind of stuff, and that's totally fine for casual play, for any narrative event, that's totally fine. You run what you want to do. But there are thunderbolts of lightning out there, very, very frightening me. That's why I wore my Galileo shirt today. Because any 12 wound fighter that costs really 100 points or more is in a tough spot. I mean, I've even been playing Vulcan Flameseekers, and they're solid. They're a good faction. But those scale breakers at 95 points, sometimes you really feel it. Any 15 wound fighter over 120 points, any 20 wound fighter over 140 points, if they don't have really high toughness, we're talking, 5 is nice, but even sometimes you need toughness 6, really. If these kind of small but not that small fighters, if these kind of mid-sized fighters cost any points at all, man, Divine Blessings are just blowing them right off of the field. It's so trivial to kill these fighters. And so I just want people to know that so that in your games you kind of keep yourself protected, right? You can play your expensive 15 wound fighter if you want to, but just make sure that you are just keeping it in the back. Hopefully, it's like a support wizard or something like that that you keep in the back, because oh boy, right now divine blessings are really taking over Warcry, I would say. For anyone who is unsure of what they are, you can always go to Warcrier and just type in divine blessings in the search, and you can see, how many points they cost you, etc. They are, I think, the strongest thing in the game, and it's a really funny thing right now where divine blessings are warping the meta, but I see a lot of people bringing lists that are unaware that divine blessings have warped the meta, and I see a lot of people then kind of walking into a buzzsaw in tournaments. um, you know I think locally people have stopped doing this in Minnesota, but I still see around the world a lot of people kind of end up walking into that buzzsaw, and that's just a rough place to be. So I want people to know, and hopefully you can keep yourself safe. I will be back with a much bigger video soon, but until then, may all your rolls be crits.